Good morning, this is Heather Hoffman, and today I'm going to share a way that I have recently been playing with alcohol inks to make a fun background and featuring a fun sentiment set from Unity Stamp Company. I'm using Yupo alcohol ink paper by Ranger. It's designed specifically to work with alcohol inks. It's got a shiny surface that keeps those colors really vibrant. And I've picked 3 just coordinating colors that I'm going to use. And since I'm going to alternate back and forth between them, I'm pulling the lids off of all of them. And you can use gloves to protect your hands. They don't seem to irritate my hands. They stain them, but if you are worried about that, you can use just a simple pair of rubber gloves to protect your hands. Now as I'm doing this, I just kind of picked a wave pattern designed to do these. I'm not squeezing the bottles. It's hard to tell in the video, but I'm pretty much just tipping them over and touching them to the paper and letting the ink kind of come out on its own. It kind of flows almost like using a ballpoint pen or something. You don't have to squeeze the pen to make it work. So, and once I've just kind of gone over the whole thing and filled in, and even there as I'm putting the little dots, I'm still not squeezing. I'm just kind of touching it and letting it run out. I don't want to put too much ink on there or it takes a really long time to dry. And then I have some alcohol ink blending solution, and this I'm just flicking over the top, and this kind of spreads the ink and just adds kind of a cool different effect to it as well, and spreads out the colors and makes it a little bit softer. At this point, I like to grab a damp cloth just to kind of pull a little bit of some of the heavier concentrations of the ink. Again, you don't have to. You can set it aside to dry, but this helped it dry a little bit quicker and kept some of the darker spots off, so I got a little more balanced color. All right, I set that aside to dry. Now I'm going to add my sentiment using the fun Have Some Sass sentiment set. And I'm using my Misty so that I can stamp this up and align it. And then once I get it kind of centered, and I always forget to pull that foam part out of my Misty when I'm using my Unity stamps, so it's always a last minute, oh yeah, take that out. Once I line the stamp on that background, I like to turn it over and use the grid marks on the Misty just to make sure my lines are straight, the words that I'm not going to stamp it crooked. And for this, the ink I have used and tried and has worked well is Staz-on ink. This is jet black. You're welcome to try. I don't know if other inks would work really well. I haven't actually tried them because I've had really good luck with this. And I know that it's going to be color fast on top of that shiny surface from that alcohol ink paper. And I like to, again, stamp it twice. And if I clean my stamp off right away from that Staz-on ink, I don't seem to notice any staining on my Unity red rubber there. So I try and do that right away as soon as I'm done too. And I did set that aside just to dry for a few seconds so I didn't risk smudging it. I was afraid to test it too quick. Now I'm pulling out some just basic rectangle dies, and I'm using alternating kind of a nesting effect, but leaving a little bit of a frame border in between. You can do these one at a time. I just like to line them all up at once so I could see exactly where my frames all fit and make sure I had them balanced where I wanted. And I'm going to run it through my Big Shot machine to die cut all of those all at once, which is another benefit of doing them all at the same time, as I didn't have to sit and run it through my machine multiple times. I used Post-it tape to hold all of those in place just so they didn't shift and move as they went through the machine. So I made sure I got them to die cut exactly where I wanted them to. I'm going to separate all the pieces. I'm getting rid of that outer edge frame, and I'm going to mount them on my white card base in alternating foam adhesive and just flat on the cardstock. I like to take a wider piece of foam adhesive and just trim it down into the thinner strips to fit what I'm doing, just so that it's the right width and I don't have to take a bunch of little tiny pieces. I like the one big strip, which is easier. So I'm starting with the outside panel and making sure I still have it lined up the right way. And I'm going to place that one up on foam adhesive. The next one, I'm just going to use my tape runner and adhere that one directly on the card base. And then the very center, I will also put up on foam adhesive. It just kind of gives a stair-step effect. Once it's all done, you can see how it kind of helps that image just to pop a little more in the background and add some interest to the background. There's 2 others here I've done already. This one with just a different color combo and the same sentiment. This one I kind of did the frames a little bit of a wonky layers. I stamped my sentiment on a separate white panel, and I used just, for that last one, I used just 2 different shades of blue to get just a different effect, and also with that alcohol blending solution. Thanks so much for coming by. Have a wonderful day.